Hey everyone, bit of a different video today. Today we'll be taking a look at the peace conference mechanics in collaboration with Paradox. Now, to be able to explain what a peace conference is, let me just quickly create one by destroying the United Kingdom. I'm just going to do this with the console commands. There we go, that should clean things up. And peace deal. Et voila, a nice and lovely peace conference. Now, in regards to these demands you can make in a peace deal, we have to separate the free content from the content added in By Blood Alone. So everything under additional demands was added in By Blood Alone, so that is part of that DLC, as well as the option to take Navy. This is also By Blood Alone. Rest of it is all base game. We'll quickly recap the basics of Peace Conference. On the right side, we have the winners with all their various points directly proportional to the amount of contribution these people had in the overall war. In this case, Germany has contributed 77% of the war effort. They get 77% of the total amount of points distributed, but more on those numbers later. Let's just take a look at the left side first. This is where all the defeated nations are, and in this case, it's quite a lot of them. At the top here, we have several different things we can do to people. First off, we select the country we want the things to happen to. Let's take Luxembourg here. It's nice and easy, just one province. We can either take a state where we annex territory for ourselves. The territory we then select on the map or we select in the list gets annexed. Simple as that. The second option is to liberate, where we either create brand new nations out of cores that are or were part of the defeated nation, or we can actually give territory back to other nations that are not involved in the peace deal. Like Ireland, for instance, has a core on Northern Ireland. I know it's a very contentious topic, but the UK currently occupies it. As Germany, what we can do is liberate this province here to Ireland, giving it to Ireland. Alternatively, we can go down here into Africa where the UK occupies a whole bunch of land and we can liberate, Botswana from the core of Botswana, creating a brand new nation. And a nice bonus of liberating is that it makes the total world tension go down, which might be beneficial, might not be beneficial. That's all up to you. That said, there are more options. This third one here, puppet, works the same as, say, annexation, where we select the territory, and from the territory we select, we create a puppet of that nation. In this case, Belgium has cores here. We select Wallonie and we would create a Belgian puppet out of Wallonie. If we then also select Vlaanderen, we would create a Belgian puppet out of these two provinces. You don't have to do it to all the cores of a nation. For instance, Vlaanderen has all the steel. I would like to have the steel myself, but I don't want to govern Wallonie. So create a puppet out of Wallonie and annex Vlaanderen. That is perfectly possible. You can mix and match. But wait, there is more. When you have created those puppets, or when you are selecting territory to puppet, what you can also do is access these additional demands. These are brand new with By Blood Alone, and they have some very cool effects. First off, a demilitarized zone. What this does is prevent the construction of new forts and delete any forts that were there, and prevents divisions from moving through that for 1,825 days. So for quite a long time. So if I were to do this, it would make Wallonie and Vlaanderen a demilitarized state. No armies here, no forts here. Just a nice little highway to France. Bitter steel from the future here. We just talked about these demilitarized zones, how you're not able to put troops there, which is correct. However, there is more to it than just that. Demilitarized zones also mean you're not able to build railways, supply nodes, forts, coastal forts, and anti-air. Now, there is currently a bug that means you can still build railways there, but that is being fixed either in the next patch or the one after that. Other options are resource rights. Like, for instance, we see the steel. We want the steel, but we don't want to bother occupying the area. So what we do is we create our puppet in Wallonie and Vlaanderen, so all of Belgium, and then we demand the resource rights from this state here. What that does is give us total control of those resources for 1,825 days. Now, I'm horrible at math, so I'm gonna have my editor put up how many years that is. But wait, there is more. Additionally, we can add war reparations for the same duration. We would confiscate civilian factories in that area, giving us those factories as off-map factories. So you can really make those defeated nations work for you. And if you really want to humiliate them, there is a fourth option where we dismantle military industry. We will completely destroy any military factory in that region. Now, it's nice to have the option. I don't recommend you do this because you want your puppets to at least be somewhat useful. But this can be very helpful if combined with some of the other options, like changing government. What change government does is it changes the ideology of a defeated nation within the selected territory. Again, it creates a brand new Belgium from the province of Vlaanderen in this case that shares the ideology of the victor. In our case, as the German Reich, that would be fascist. So we create a little bit of a fascist Belgium up north here, and it would not be a puppet. It would be a fully independent nation, just fascist and more acceptable of our good graces, I would assume. And we can do those same 4 things to any country that we change the ideology of. And then last, and probably my favorite option, take Navy. What this does is allow us to claim the capital ships of the enemies we have defeated. Not only that, but every capital ship comes with a certain percentage of screening ships. For instance, HMS Furious here, one of the UK's glorious vessels, is a capital ship, and it comes with 3% of the screening ships if we were to take it. The percentage of screening ships is dependent on the amount of capital ships that are available to take. So if they only have 5 capital ships, every capital ship would come with 20% of the screening ships. In this case, the UK has a whole bunch of capital ships, so only a small portion of screening ships are included with each capital ship, but the numbers add up quickly. And it is entirely possible that you are some sort of very good guy. You have what you want, you still have a bunch of points, you can still give things to either your puppets as long as they are included in the war, or your allies as long as they are included in the war. If we want to make things crazy here for Hungary, we can simply select Hungary here and start giving land to Hungary. In this case, we could give them all of Poland. It still works. I've seen a lot of comments saying you can't do this anymore. Yes, you can. Simply select them from this list, and the only requirement is that they be involved in the war. Let's see here. Italian East Africa is involved in the war. I think they've earned themselves a slice of British Somaliland. I'll give them a slice of Garissa. There we go. And they have taken some land. Brilliant. Now do note the only options available through this menu is annexation. We cannot give other countries puppets. We cannot give other countries parts of fleets. It's just annexation, but it's better than nothing. Now about those puppets and in a lesser degree liberated nations, there are a few distinctions we need to make here. Starting with puppets. If a puppet's involved in the peace deal as a co-belligerent, you can give them anything you want. Like you can see here, I have selected Slovakia as the victor. Little old Slovakia is a German puppet at this point, and I can give it anything at all in the peace deal. I can, as long as I have points contesting me about it, I can give them everything and anything. Yeah, people are going to start competing for it. I really don't want to bother with this. But yeah, we have big Slovakia now. Conversely, if we were to create a puppet, let's see, Germany wants to create a puppet of the United Kingdom in the Greater London area. I'm going to create. We have created a German UK or German Britain, and it is now here under Beneficiaries. If we want to give this puppet more land, we have to do it through this method of being Germany, having things selected for ourselves, having the puppet mechanic selected, and then puppet territories that belong to the original country we're drawing the puppet from. In this case, that being the UK. We can give it all of the lands it is currently occupying. So all of, occupying. It owned previously. So we have a very, 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 very extensive list of things to give it because the UK is occupying a very, very, very extensive part of the world at this time. But if we were to, for instance, puppet Belgium. So as Germany, I'm going to puppet Belgium. I can only give Belgium land it is already owning. So before the peace deal, they owned all of the Congo there. We can give it all of that back, but we cannot give it anything extra. We cannot give it any of the French territory or any of the UK's territory, with the sole exception being if France is occupying Belgian cores or Belgian claims, we can give those back to Belgium. But in this case, nobody else is really occupying any Belgian land, so we cannot give anything back to Belgium. How that would work is under the liberation here. If we were to liberate Northern Ireland, we'd simply return its core back to Ireland. So unlike before by Blood Alone, where you could simply create a small puppet and pretty much give it all of the land in the Bestial, right now we are limited to giving it the land it already controlled and giving it cores and claims that it didn't control, but other people involved in the Bestial control, and you can give it that way. Same works for liberated nations. You can only liberate a country, let's see, in this case we can only liberate Congo or Zaire, as it has changed names a couple of times throughout history, but we can only liberate here Zaire, Italy, there. Now we've liberated Zaire, it's a free country, hurrah, but we cannot liberate land to that free country that it doesn't already have a core on. So we can't liberate Zaire from cores of Zambia or cores of Kenya. We can only liberate nations from their own cores. So that is something you have to take into account. It doesn't really matter as much for liberation, but it can be impactful for puppets, especially if you're used to making gigantic puppets. You're a little bit limited in that now, unless the puppet is involved directly in the peace deal as a victor, like little Slovakia, who really benefited here. So I hope that clears up a few things. I know that the peace deal, especially in regards to puppets, has been very confusing for some people. So let me just quickly recap. If you want to make a puppet from the peace deal, you have to do it through the peace mechanic of puppeting and then selecting territory currently owned by the defeated nation to create a puppet from that defeated nation. If you just go clicking on the map, it will default to the overlord, in this case the United Kingdom. You can also go picking from the list, and then you can puppet individual countries that have cores that are currently occupied by the United Kingdom. But if you're just clicking on the map, it will default to the overlord being the United Kingdom. That country that you've then created a puppet out of cannot get additional territory that is not already one of their cores and is not already belonging to someone involved as a loser in the peace deal. In any subsequent peace deals, if the country you've created is involved as a victor, you can give it whatever you want, like we did here with Slovakia. Slovakia was a co-belligerent, it's a victor, and it can benefit just like any other country involved in a peace deal, with the sole exception that you can only give states to puppets. It can take stuff on its own, but if you're giving things to your puppet, it's limited to give state. So you cannot liberate things in their name. You cannot give your puppet puppets, which is metagaming. Your puppet might be able to change government. I'm not actually sure, but it's not something you can do for them. And you cannot give navies to puppets, which is good because the AI just wastes navies anyway. Which brings me to my next point. Taking land in peace conferences. As you can tell, when I'm selecting this province on the map here, because the turn has passed, you see both a German flag, because I have now selected the area for annexation, and an Italian flag, because in the previous turn, Italy decided they want it. What that does is start a contestation. You and other players or the AI will now have to decide, do I want to go all in or start really devoting myself to taking this province, or do I want to spend my points elsewhere? What we do here is either forfeit this province, we click forfeit, or in this case we add the demand and we demand it again. As you can tell, this is going to be increasingly more expensive the longer this goes on, but the AI tends to give up reasonably quickly. But I think Italy is still going to demand this, so let's go. Yes, Italy still wants to take this here. Now, look at this. We have initially invested 97 points. Well, it was cheaper, but it keeps getting progressively more expensive. So we start by investing 90 points, and if we contest it, so we demand the province, we get 90 of those 97 back, but 7 points are lost. As a result, as the price keeps going up, more and more points will be lost as 2 or more nations go toe-to-toe trying to take a specific territory. And it's going to be up to you to decide if you want to spend those points there. Now, the AI has been tweaked a bit, and it's no longer as aggressive as it was in the early days of By Blood Alone, and it tends to give up reasonably quickly as long as it's one, not a core, not a claim, and not a strategically important territory like high in resources or connecting some of their other territory. That said, this can still run up quite a cost, especially if you're playing in multiplayer with other players. So this is how contesting bids works. Now, about those points you start with. In this case, we have passed 5 turns and all of the score has been meted out. The total amount of points spread out across all of the countries participating in the war is going to be roughly 130% of the cost required to fully annex every nation involved in the peace deal as a defeated nation. So in theory, we have enough points to fully annex everyone in the Allies and still have 30% left over. However, and this is where some of those earlier really disgusting peace deals came from. 1. Contesting bids. Contesting bids makes points be spent that are not directly being used to take territory, so points will be lost there. If a lot of bids are contested, you may end up in a position where you've spent so many points among other participating nations in the peace deal that you end up with not enough points to fully annex everyone. But the devs are actively tweaking this, so it should not be as much of an issue, both with the AI behavior and the points being handed out. 2. The Navy. The Navy is not included in that point total, so those 130% of the points just refers to annexation. If you want to fully annex them and take all the ships, depending on the size of that navy, you may not have enough points to do both. So if you take the navy first and then you start annexing, you may end up in a position where you still aren't able to take everything. And 3, it does not take these additional demands into consideration either. While this is not as much of an issue as the navy, in smaller peace deals where there is just you and one small-ish defeated enemy, this may become a problem where points run out. But again, devs are actively looking at this and they are still tweaking the numbers. In theory, every peace deal should end with the defeated nation completely at your mercy and should not survive by merit of there not being enough points to do more to them. And then there is, of course, a couple more things, and we dive deeper. Let's see if we can reset this. All right, let's hover over the East Midlands here. When we hold shift, you can see the state has a certain value, in this case 110.2, and it's multiplied by a factor, which we can see when we hold shift. Let's hold shift and see what that does. So we know now where the state value comes from. So the base is 10. Every province starts at 10. And it's then increased by the amount of buildings available, by the amount of resources in the state, and by the amount of manpower. That gives you the total base cost of that province. And that cost is then multiplied by several factors. In this case, I have not only selected puppet, but I am also selecting resources. We get additional demands, 1.25 there. That means it's becoming more expensive because we have an additional demand active. Let me just unselect that and you'll see it disappear. There, it's gone, so it's significantly cheaper to take. Next, you see ideology, 0.95. Our ideology in this case is fascist. Fascists get a slight 0.05 bonus to puppeting. If you were to take annexation, you get an even larger bonus. In this case, ideology has a very large impact, 0.72 for annexation, meaning fascists are given a bonus when annexing territory directly. Third, you have occupation, 0.8, meaning if you occupy the territory at the start of the peace conference, you will have a discount in taking that state. And lastly, influence, 0.91. I'm still waiting on the devs here. I'll edit it in once I get the information. I don't know what that means specifically. Now, if we were to go in a liberated territory, you'll also see a couple of stuff here. For instance, we are trying to liberate a nation as Fascist Reich, and suddenly you'll see it's more expensive to liberate. So we can deduct from this that fascists have a penalty towards liberation, a significant bonus towards annexation, and a slight bonus towards puppeting. So if you're ever wondering why, as for instance, Democratic UK, you cannot take the entirety of the Axis, while as a fascist UK you have no problem doing so, this would be why. And this is Bitter Seal from the future. Like I said, I was going to go back to the devs and get some information here. Right, look, let's start with the basics that I've managed to get from the developers. When we're talking about the modifier ideology, they are cost reductions based on, of course, your ideology. Fascist and non-aligned nations have a cost reduction to taking land directly. Democracies will have a cost reduction to the liberation option and forcing the change of government, while communists get a cost reduction for creating puppets. And then that modifier influence there, that is a special one. It's a cost reduction value that is basically, in the most simple terms, how close that state is to land that you own and you have an uncontested claim in this ongoing peace conference. So it is a bit vague, but in essence, the closer it is to your already owned land, and if nobody else is contesting it, it's going to be cheaper by and large. Its main point is actually just to encourage you and the AI to take land in a way that makes sense, in large swaths clumped together instead of random provinces spread throughout your captured territory. Also, one nice thing that you might be able to plan around: behavior of the AI in peace deals now. More accurately, your faction members. Faction members now are far more likely to give you your cores and claims, and are also less likely to start puppeting countries you've already puppeted. For say, you puppet the UK in the Greater London area, Italy is significantly less likely to then also puppet the UK in Cornwall, giving you potentially 2, maybe even 3 Englands. So that is, I don't want to say no longer a thing, but significantly less likely now. And for instance, if you're playing as Greece and you are part of the Allies and you've managed to take out Italy, or even if you're Greece and you're part of the Axis and you take out Italy, the faction AI is very likely to give you the Dodecanese Islands because you, as Greece, have a core there. So the AI is a lot more likely to give you cores and even claims now than it was before. Of course, all these things are still subject to change, but it's a nice change from what it used to be. We've all seen the horror that Europe becomes after an AI-only peace deal. Now, last but not least, you see up here a Beneficiaries tab. Currently, it's grayed out because there are no beneficiaries. Beneficiaries are countries that would benefit from your peace deal, but are not directly involved in it. So nobody in the Allies is going to benefit from this peace deal, I can tell you that. And everybody in this right side here is already involved, so they are victors. They're considered victors. So let's create a beneficiary here by liberating Wales. If I were to liberate the province of Wales, I'll submit my demands. There we go. And now we have the beneficiary here of Wales. German Reich has liberated Wales in Wales, and they are considered a beneficiary. Now let's go and puppet, for instance, the UK. Submit that demand. We have the beneficiary here, the United Kingdom, the Greater London area. The UK is puppeted by the German Reich. That puppet of the UK, not the standard democratic UK, is considered a beneficiary. That is what this tab means. You cannot give them anything from this tab. This is just where you can see, for instance, you're trying to create a puppet. This is where you can see what territories you've already given that puppet if you don't want to look at it on the map. This is where you can see what countries you have liberated in case you forget. It's a nice, handy list of, well, things you've done to the enemy that aren't directly taking land. So yeah, I hope that clears up the peace deal mechanics a little bit, and I hope you've enjoyed this and you've learned something. This has been a collaboration with Paradox. They specifically reached out to me to make this video. So yes, they are paying me to do this, but I think it's very helpful to the community to know just how the game works, because there has been a whole lot of confusion here. Anyway, this has been me, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you'll enjoy this next one too. See ya. But before you go, I have a little teaser for you of things to come, and it's actually really cool. Soon, we will be able, as the player, to change how war score and peace conference points are distributed. The Paradox will be adding a sort of slider based on difficulty, how much you, as the human, and the AI get out of peace deals in terms of points, so you can get more or less depending on the difficulty. There are 4 possible redistributions of points being discussed and will be added. 1, from AI winners to human winners, which will be automatically activated when you play on very easy or easy difficulty. And then the other 3 are from puppets to their overlords, from faction members to the faction leader, and from low participation winners to the others. All those 3 are activated via game rules that will be disabled by default. And you will be able to check those redistribution of points in 2 places. The war score screen, there's a tooltip that will break down how current war participation stands and how it would look in a peace deal if the peace conference started now. And in the peace conference itself, the similar tooltip there will give you the war participation and the resulting peace score ratio based on the game settings. Very cool. This is due to go out with the next patch. I think this is a good change. I wonder what you guys think about it.